was expecting a big response back. Good morning, everyone. That's much better. You must excuse me, I come from the Cape Flats, so there we shout all the time. You know, even if you don't want to, someone is screaming on the other side. So, my name is Marlon Parker, and I'm with an organization called RLabs, and I'm just going to share with you a little story, really, about how technology can be quite a great equalizer. We find ourselves at a very interesting time on the continent where by 2035 we will have the world's largest workforce, right? Because we've got more young people than anywhere else on the planet at the moment. And at this point in time, we have an opportunity to actually create a workforce that can change not just South Africa or the continent, but that I believe can change the world. Now, my personal story started about 10 years ago, where I'm a recovering academic, by the way. I was in technology, and I was visiting my mom, and at that moment, while I was there visiting, I saw a little kid during the middle of the day, 8 years old, and not in school. And I was quite shocked in the fact that this kid is supposed to be in school. Why is he walking and roaming the streets? And when I stopped him and I said, listen, why are you not at school? He told me, no, he's looking for a job. An 8-year-old child. And when I asked him, why are you looking for a job? He said, no, because I thought maybe he just wants money to buy some sweets. And he said, no, he wants to get money because he wants to buy him shoes so he can go to school. And he wants to buy bread for his 5-year-old sister that's hungry at home. Because his mom is high on drugs and his father is currently in prison. And the same community where I grew up in, and it really kind of shook me to my core. And I thought, here I am, have now emerged in using technology to some form. And here's someone from exactly the same place where I come from who has lost hope. And I must be honest, at that moment in time, I was thinking about my introduction to technology, which wasn't a very easy introduction either. You must understand, when I was done with school, I've never seen a computer in my life. The only job I could find at the time was to help the family, was to push trolleys. So I was a trolley boy. And I'm very good at pushing a trolley, people. Sure, you must see me in a ShopRite or Pick and Pay. It doesn't matter if the crowd is in front of me. You'll find me on the other side, right? Especially that time, there was no Ruby on Rails when I was doing that. Because I'm very good at the rails or the wheels. But anyway, that's another story for another day. But while I was pushing the trolley, my ultimate dream was that I wanted a job where I can wear a shirt and a tie. And unfortunately, pushing a trolley wasn't the appropriate job to wear a shirt and a tie. You push trolley, tie gets stuck, you go down. It doesn't end well. So at that time, I then had an opportunity. There was where someone said, listen, you can actually they're looking for someone to work in an office. And because I've never engaged with technology, for me, Office had nothing to do with Microsoft. But Office was actually doing some filing, paper filing, in an actual office. And when I heard that, what do you think I was thinking about? Shirt and a tie, you're right. And I thought, hey, here's a job. And I knew the person doing the interviews. I went for the interview. I did apparently well. They shortlisted me. And I was so confident. You know, when you're very confident that when you write the piece of code, everything is going to work. I had that level of confidence. Doesn't matter what people tell you. You know it's going to work. And I knew I was going to get this job. And that I went to go buy myself a shirt and a tie, like a bright red tie and a white shirt. The tie was so red that even in the dark you would see me. It had to be very, very bright. And while I'm now going to find out if I got the job, because the person doing the interviews was a family friend. I knew this lady very well, and anybody that drinks tea at Marlon's house had to be desperate because my granny used to make 8 cups of tea with 1 tea bag. So they really had to love being there, right? And here this person tells me, sorry, Marlon, we're choosing the other person. And I was like shocked. I was like so confident that I was going to get this job. And as I was leaving, I made a promise to myself, if I don't get this job, I'm going to resign, and then I'm going to go and study something. And I didn't quite know what I was going to study. And I don't know if any of you know what a Cape Flats mother is like. Sure, I'm telling you, they got these shoes that you can't just, when they throw you with that shoe, doesn't matter if you're standing behind a pillar, it will still hit you. And you know it's trouble when she takes the teeth out, right? So there I was thinking, what am I going to tell my mother when I go home? Because the family was, that time we were living off my grandmother's pension, which was a couple of $100, and the tips that I would normally make on a monthly basis would contribute to the household income. And as I was walking, because I'm now going to tell my mother I'm going to go and study. No one in my family's ever completed school. And yeah, I'm going to have to convince a Cape Flats mother, not just any mother, that her son wants to go and study. And I had no clue what I was going to do. And as I was walking, someone stopped me and they said, Marlon, where are you going? I said, no, I need to go and study. And they said, you know what? If you want to go and do anything and you want to go and study, you must go and study it. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to study. And she's working as a waitress, right? So and I says, no, I'm going to study. She says, no, do it. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to do it. She says, no, you don't understand. Study it. I'm like, what is this it? She says, information technology. And I looked at her because I've got no clue what she's talking about. And she says, and I asked her, what is this? She says, she don't know. But the table she was serving were talking about it all the time. Eat this and eat that. So it must be important. And she was so excited. Have you ever been so excited about something that you get excited and you don't know why you are excited? So that is the position that I was in, that I went home and I told my mother, I'm going to study. And she asked, what you going to study? I said, I'm going to do it. What is this it? Information technology. What is this information technology? I never got that far, so I said, no, it's about technology and information. Fortunately, she was, so that was my introduction into the world of technology. And when I got there, and I'm telling you this background story very quickly, when I got to the university, I applied, I had to do an aptitude test. Apparently, they thought I have logic. I think they made a big mistake. And when I got there, they then asked me that I had to choose a major. And then I looked, because I still didn't know what it was. And when I saw the major, there was one major that I was very good at. It's this major called programming. Because I used to do a lot of youth programs, during the holidays, volunteer in the community. And I thought, oh my word, I've been doing programming for years. Finally, one thing that I'm so good at. So they said, Marlon, so you have to choose a major. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do programming. That's my calling. That's what I'm going to do. So I chose programming. And then they said, wow, that's very good. But how many languages? I'm like, I do 2 languages at school. It would be great if I can do 3 languages. So I said, I would love to do 3 languages, please. So there I went, majoring in a highly technical stream. And the 3 languages I was doing, and this is going to give away my age, was COBOL, Assembler, and C. Now, for any of you that know those languages, if you've never touched or seen a computer in your life, now I come from the Cape Flats. That for me was a rude awakening. Right? I've seen some stuff, but hey, that was another level. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because my introduction into the world of technology was simply by someone that was eavesdropping. But technology for me became a great equalizer. So when I saw this child, and I saw this child who has lost hope, I knew that it could have been me. It could have been me. And that then got me thinking I had to do something, and I didn't quite know what I was going to do. But the one thing that I did have was I had an old 386 computer that was donated to me running on dial-up connection. Some of you talk about 5G. Try loading an image on that beast, right? And all I knew, and of course, this organization that gave it to me was very generous, and I thought, I have this computer, I've got a little room, maybe I should teach one young person how he could use a technology, the internet, to share a story of hope. Because I thought maybe this young boy's parents or people like that could be inspired not to make bad choices. That was it. I just wanted to share a story of hope. So I introduced him at the time to different kinds of social media. We did some blogging. And the problem was this guy that I trained, he was an ex-gang member and an ex-drug dealer. He was under the impression that he was getting free computer classes. So he went to go tell his friends. Now, who do you think are the friends of an ex-gang member and an ex-drug dealer? These people have terrible CVs but impressive criminal records, right? But we literally started around this one old computer, teaching them how to use technology to share a story of hope. That is how the journey of RLabs started. Very humble beginnings, but we went from that to now 10 years later, this is where we are at. From a simple action of wanting to help the community, we've now expanded into 23 countries, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how we've done this. Right? Being able to build technologies from the ground up that has impacted over 13 million people's lives and have managed to graduate over 100,000 people, of which 90,000 people we've managed to move into the economy. All because of wanting to do something good for one person. That's how it started 10 years ago. So based on the last 10 years, I want to share with you 5 lessons that I believe is going to be helpful for you as someone that is a techie, a developer, or in the industry, that I really feel could actually make a big difference as you go forward in this industry. And the first lesson, and I'm going to share about RLabs through these lessons, is we made a conscious decision that we want to be community-driven. I love what Philip said earlier, the fact of we need community at all times. And at RLabs, we decided to have our RLabs hubs in the townships. Right? So we're on the Cape Flats, and next year, we should be opening in Soweto and Alex as well. But we wanted to be where the people are and co-create with the community. That for us was very important. And we do that, and it's interesting because what we do is it started off by teaching one skill to now we have over 40 different courses that we offer, from basic computing right up to more advanced coding. We do things around Python, a little bit stuff around machine learning. And our approach to learning is simple. These are people that normally would not have completed school at times. And it doesn't matter if you haven't completed school, because we try and see the opportunity or the potential in the person. And all we do is we give them a challenge that they are passionate about in their community. And then we tell them, okay, now you need to go and teach yourself. And it's facilitated in a very collaborative and playful way, I must be honest. And go and solve that challenge for your community. It's fascinating that when you have skin in the game, it changes your behavior. So it's not that you're coming to a class, you're coming to a place where there's a mission to solve a problem that is deeply rooted to where you are. And that is why it's so important to be community-driven in the work that you do and co-creating with the people who you are building the technology for. I know as coders, it's very easy. We just want to kind of leave us alone. We want to do what we need to do. But I don't want us to forget the opportunity that is there within community. You'll be surprised the ideas that people can come up with. So that's the first lesson. Be community-driven. The second lesson that we've learned is that once the person has now been equipped with a skill, all of a sudden people have ideas. How many of you have ever had a good idea? Can you raise your hand? You don't have to be modest. Say, this is a merge conference. You don't have to be modest about it. Sure, I'm a bit worried. No good ideas, yay? Okay, how many of you have ever had a good idea and you did nothing with that idea? Can you raise your hand? Okay, I see there's some people that want to raise both their hands. Right? Now, it's very difficult if you have an idea. Where do you go to with a good idea? And what we then did was we created an environment where people can come and actually turn those ideas into reality. So I remember the first group of young men and women that we had. Remember I told you they were ex-gang members and ex-drug dealers? And one of the big problems at the time that we faced in our communities, and it's still there, was the problem of drug addiction and crystal meth and all of those kind of things. And these young men and women said, you know what, why don't we, and there was a technology at the time, some of you might still remember it, Mix It. Do you still remember Mix It? I can see there's angel eyes, right? Hey? And part of what happened was, they said, Marlon, a lot of young people are using Mix It. Why don't we actually provide counseling services through the Mix It platform? And at that time, there was no open platform. It was literally just a messenger. And we said, okay, let's do this. And it's interesting for me because here, these young men and women were given hope. But now they were thinking about what can they do with that little bit of hope that they have to help someone else. And everybody in this room, you do have hope. The question is, what are you doing with the hope that you have? And what we then did was we quickly did a little experiment where we went to a local school. We asked the principal, give us your 10 worst kids, the kids that's got problems with drug addiction. The principal wanted to give us half the school. We said, no, we only need 10 because it's an experiment. And what we did, we literally just used Mix It in its current form, and we were just chatting to, one person was chatting to young people. So we just told the 10 kids, if you want to chat to someone, you can speak to the experts, because these people that we have were very impressive records, you know. And a week later, we had 20 kids talking to us. A month later, there were 300 kids. But it was difficult to speak to 300 people via I don't know if you've ever tried chatting to 300 people at the same time. Then we realized that Mixer is built on the Jabber protocol, which meant that we could use Google Chat at the time. So we then decided, hey, why don't we build, then at least people can do it on a computer. At that time, we upgraded from a 386 to a 486. We were going places. So we immediately were then able to support more young people until there was a breakfast show called, I don't know if it's still running, Morning Live. Do you know Morning Live? I've never watched it until I had to appear on it. And they said they want to come and broadcast because it was a media's baby. You had people, ex-drug addicts and drug dealers providing counseling using Mixit. I mean, it was a very beautiful media story. And what they then did was, they immediately then came and they broadcasted where I went live on air and I demoed how it works. And I didn't expect people, there was only 2 camera people there, or 3 like we see now today. I didn't expect there's anybody on the other side. And I just told people that if you want to chat to us, this counseling service via Mixit runs from a Monday to a Thursday, right? And that was a Friday morning we were broadcasting. And I said, we will also just say hi if you add us as a contact. Within 2 minutes, 10,000 people added us as a contact. Of course, our internet was not even that, it was very slow. We were unable and we were struggling. So I don't know if you remember, back then you had to accept someone when they invited you to chat to you. So all our people could do was accept and copy and paste hi. That's all they could do. They couldn't respond after that. So that was the Friday. But for us, we knew that we had to build something. And then I realized that, we have to build a technology platform that can manage this influx of conversations. And this is now before Slack was a thing or WhatsApp was a thing. And we then went, this is the Friday afternoon, I remember there was an open source project at UWC, and I remember that they had a little chat mechanism in the e-learning system that they weren't really using, and I thought that could potentially work for us. And I contacted this friend of mine, I said, listen, is it possible for us to possibly, we're doing this community work, we want to build a technology platform to help community members. He said, sure, Marlon, we can do that. What's your budget? Now remember, we're going to go live on Monday. And I thought, what do I do? Do I now call Morning Live to tell them, I'm sorry, can you please retract what I said? Which is going to be very embarrassing. Or do we actually take the weekend to build something that can help people and accelerate hope? He says, Marlon, so what do you have? I said, well, there's no budget. He said, okay, what's your timeline like? I'm like, well, technically, and we need to train the people that's going to use the platform on Sunday because we have to go live on Monday. This is a Friday afternoon. So he looked at me, he's like, it's not going to work. I'm like, well, we can try, right? We can try. And there we did it. We tried, and I must be honest, it's the ugliest user interface I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen anything that ugly, seriously. But when it got to the Monday, and we were able to then get it to work, and for 30 minutes it ran beautifully until our servers were crashing. Yeah, that time there was no AWS or anything to that effect. We were running it local, right? And we kept on reiterating every single time. Every day there was a new change. Until eventually that technology was eventually used in 37 countries, even by the WHO, and impacted over 4.5 million people. And the crazy thing about this was the technology was built in the townships, serving a real need in the community. But that is what happens when you decide that you want to accelerate hope. It allows you to innovate and to create things that you even don't think is possible. Right? So that's the second lesson, hope acceleration. The third lesson is that there's always in everybody there's potential, so you need to unlock the potential in people so that those people can lead. Especially for those of you that are in a position where you can support a younger developer. Right? Don't try and keep everything for yourself. Unlock the potential in that person so that allowing them to lead their own journeys. Now, for me, one of the crazy stories we had was there was a guy who was unemployed for 8 years. And he came to me and he says, he also came into RLabs and he says, Marlon, I've been unemployed for 8 years and it's tough. And when he said that, I'm like, yes, man, that's good. And he looked at me, how can it be good? Now, he's from a place called Mannenberg. You can go and Google Mannenberg, right? And I said, no, but that's, and he says, but it's difficult. I don't know what to do. And I said, no, that's good. And then I asked him, what is the biggest problem in your community? And he said, my biggest problem in my community is unemployment. And when he said that, I'm like, that's amazing. And I called someone in. I said, come and listen to this guy, man. And I said, tell him what you just told me. He said, no, I've been unemployed for 8 years. I'm like, yes, that's good. Tell them the other thing. He said, no, and the biggest problem in my community is unemployment. And then I told him, I said, you know what? In any other industry, if you have 5 years or more experience in something, you become a consultant. I said, you've got 8 years experience in being unemployed. The minute he realized that his complexity and his challenge is actually his expertise, the failures that he's experienced is actually his expertise, immediately it shifted the way he thought. It meant that it unlocked in him something that was deep down inside of him. And eventually he went to go and build what we used to call, it's a Finnish word. Any Finns here? No? It means new, right? It's like a new beginning. And we used to use a lot of Finnish names for products because the domains were always available. And he literally created a poor man's LinkedIn. He literally created a poor man's LinkedIn that over 500,000 people used. And 10% of those people were able to find jobs through a platform that this young person built. It wasn't the best of platforms. And we weren't worried about it had to be the best. It just had to fulfill a purpose. It had to unlock value for someone. And that immediately was what we saw happening for this young man. So the third lesson I want you to remember is unlocked to lead. The fourth lesson, and it's only 5 lessons, don't worry, right, is that all of you in this room are builders, right? You like creating things. But I want you to kind of think about it. How do you go about building to create? In other words, how can you look at what you are building to create new industries, to create new opportunities? Because that is the kind of developers that I believe is in this room. That's the type of people that I believe is sitting right here today. And we had a young lady that always wanted to be on the radio. Anybody here ever been on radio? Oh, wow, amazing. Right? And she always that was a dream. And we came to speak to us and I told her, I said, you know what? If you want to be on the radio, you can either go and study broadcasting, which is absolutely fine, but it's going to take 3 years, your family can't afford it. Or as RLabs, we can build a radio station for you, and then next week you're on the radio. And she looked at me, I'm like, yes, we're going to build you a radio station, which we did. We literally built a radio station in our reception. Right? We got scolded at. Got some online radio licensing going. A week later, she's on the radio. But then she realized that because it's an online radio station, a lot of people didn't have data to listen to the stream. So what we then did was some of the people, they wanted to help her, and they decided they wanted to build make a tool that will allow people to listen to and reduce the data cost of the stream. That's what they built. And these are kids from the townships. So they built it, and eventually what happened was it was going very well because they wanted to help this girl for her dream. Then there was a small little media company that came to us and said, hey, we love what you're doing. We see you're doing community radio online. And we're like, yeah, of course we're doing it. Right? Although it wasn't really that. And then they asked us, could they actually use that technology for some of their broadcasting? And we said, of course, we are welcome to use it. And I don't think you know this this media company. It's a small one. It's called the BBC. People in England, I think, know them, right? So BBC, whenever you listen to BBC World Service on a third-party website, the underlying technology was built on the Cape Flats. Because, yeah, you can applaud those young people. Because they wanted to ensure that they are building something that can create opportunities for others. And that is what I want to encourage you. Take your skill that you have, look at what can you build that can create opportunities for others. Right? That is an important lesson to learn. And then the last lesson before my time runs out is every single one of you have the opportunity to lift, to inspire. As I'm looking across this room, all of you can have the ability to inspire others. And it's your duty to inspire. Don't say, but that's not me. It's your duty to inspire, even if it's just to encourage a younger developer, or if it's just to open up a door for someone else, or physical door as well. All right? This young man is a young man called Alan, and he runs a platform called Zlato, where we use blockchain technology. That's my first buzzword. Here we go. I've got a 4IR word in there, blockchain, that uses blockchain technology to incentivize responsible behavior. So we use smart contracts to do some evaluations and allows young people who's unemployed to do work in their communities. Then what happened is the work gets validated. They then earn digital rewards that get stored in a mobile wallet, and they can use it at over 3,000 stores nationwide. Right? He's from a place called Mitchell's Plain. And 2 weeks ago, Alan comes from, like I said, Mitchell's Plain. They were, at the same day, Alan was going to the airport on that particular day. And a couple of roads away from where Alan lived, there were 4 other young people whose lives were taken tragically because of the gang violence in the community. And it made me realize we live in a very fragile world, but the opportunities that we have. In the same moment, 4 young people lost their futures, just like that. In the same time, Alan was invited by Google to go to their big Chrome Dev conference. And they highlighted Zlato. And here's a kid from the same community, the same upbringing, right? He didn't go to university, only completed school. And there he was invited as a guest to go and be showcasing his technology and his platform in Silicon Valley. The opportunity that you have as a developer is to live to inspire. Every single one of you have the ability to inspire others. And that is my big challenge for you. I really want you to think about how can you inspire the next generation of developers. And of course, this young man is doing incredible things. So hopefully I can talk to you later about a little bit more about that project. So those are the 5 lessons. You all remember the 5 lessons. You forgot it again. What's the first one? Let's see. Be community driven. Yes. The second one. Hope acceleration is important. What was the third lesson? Unlock to lead. The fourth one? Bold to create. And this is the last one, right? Live to inspire. So this is my challenge and my ask for you. And I'm being very bold to ask you something. My ask to every single one of you in this room today is the world needs you to be the superhero. You have a superpower. Every single one of you have the opportunity to break that endless loop of poverty, right? That where we see that our communities, because you have the ability to create something that can make a difference. Within you, there's one line of code, one idea, one thought that can actually make a difference. But it does need a superhero. And today I'm looking at a room filled with superheroes that have different skills, different abilities. But my one simple ask for you is, let us use that superpower that you have to make a difference in the world. Thank you very much. Yes, there's a question right at the back, and I think I know that person.
Hey, Marlon. This is a hard one. So I've known you for a long time, and I haven't put you on the spot before, so this is your chance. You always insanely positive, like always. In the presumably non-zero amount of time when you are feeling kind of dejected, desperate, whatever, what do you do? Because I've never seen you in that mode, but it has to be there.
Good question. So whenever I have a bad day or things are just kind of very overwhelming, I always try and find the story of people that, because in my work and the work that I do, there's a lot of people whose lives have been changed because of the work that I'm involved in. It's not me, but there's a big team that does it. So I'm always go back to those possibilities because I might have one bad day today, but tomorrow I've got another opportunity to kind of get up, start all over again, and kind of reshift and set things back into balance. So for me, what I do is I try and find those inspirational stories of people that I know that I'm connected to in some form. That keeps me going. And then also I'm a spiritual being, so I try and draw strength from, the Almighty wherever I can. well, all the time actually. And then I also have an incredible wife that keeps me sane. So, but that for me is find the place where you can draw your strength from, and secondly, find those those stories that inspires you. I would say that is very important, because all of you and we don't, sometimes it might just be a good review of a piece of code that you wrote, or like it's a good thing. It meant you did some good in the world, right? Like take it. And I must be honest, I take it all the time. Like people, I'm almost like a glutton when it comes to when there's just one good review. I'm like, no, that's good. I also take when everything's go bad, then it's me. When things are good, it's always the team. It's never me. When it's bad, then it's me. It's always me. So yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
I just wanted to ask, you gave a background of the great things that some of the people that went through your program achieved. For example, there are some drug addicts or ex-drug addicts, ex-thugs who've gone out to build great platforms. But in such instances, some of them can easily fall back into their old ways. Have you had such instances? And how did you reintegrate those people back into their potential and keep them going?
Yeah, good question. So again, let me just reiterate. It started with that, but now most of the people are not ex-gang members and ex-drug dealers, right? So we get a broad base of people that come through our doors. We even have university graduates that comes because people might want to learn about, be it AI or robotics, whatever the case might be. We've never had a case where people would actually go back once they are infused into something. There's something about purpose that drives you, where you come from doesn't define where you're going. And our approach, especially when we work with people that come from those, like be it involved with gangs and drugs, they've got amazing skill sets. Like I don't know if you know that these people are willing to die for their brand. Gangs are willing to die for their brand. How many of you are willing to die for your company? Okay, how many of you have got your company tattooed all over your body? Like, have you not, like, seriously, Milan is all the OfferZen people, I'm going to check you later on, eh? I want to see your cred. But what we've realized is that the minute you are able to instill purpose in someone, because all of us have got some purpose that we have to fulfill on this world, I mean, it's a given. And because that is what you are made or created to do. And the minute you tap into that, it's a very seldom that people would actually fall back. Because now it's not just about who they are, but it's about what they're bringing into the world. And I think that is why it's so precious for those of us in the developer community. You always have the ability to bring something into the world. And I guess it's what you bring into the world is the important thing. So we haven't had that incident as yet. Yeah.
One more question here.
Yeah. There's also a couple of hands. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for the talk. So one of the things about being a superhero is they're always flying out and looking for the problems. Sometimes as a software developer, you can form a bubble around yourself. Do you have any recommendations for going out and finding the opportunities to?
Thank you for that. So how many of you, I saw the thing about Marvel and DC, but I'm going to use a Clark Kent. I see DC didn't do too well. You would know that when Clark Kent goes out into the world, he goes as Clark Kent. So when you go into communities or things that you're passionate about, don't go as a software developer. Go as you as a person. Because sometimes if you bring that lens into something, then you're almost going to narrow what the opportunity is there. I don't know if you understand. Because immediately you tell yourself, oh, but they don't need an app or they don't need a web platform. So I'm not really useful. So even if you go there and all you're doing is you're just cleaning the kitchen, but through engaging and being in the context of that community, you will pick up certain things that they might not even be able to verbalize, where your skill can then come into play. So the important is for you to be. And one of the mantras that I've told my team for this year, I told them if there's one thing that I want all of them to do is to lead with love. It means that you actually are willing, because remember, when you lead with love, you're not telling that person to change. You're willing to adjust your position so that you can learn from that person. And that for me would be when you are looking at things around wanting to do something in the community or want to do good or be that superhero, arrive as the person that you are first. And then later on, you would know exactly where to utilize your superpower. That would be my advice to all of you. And all of you can contribute, of course, to society. I see there's a big END sign in front of me. I don't know what that means. I wasn't good at languages. But it means it's END.
We've got one more question up.
Is it mean one more question or? Okay. I was trying to kind of see END, does it stand for anything? I couldn't think anything off the cuff. Whose question are we going to take? There's a hand at the back. There's a... and there's one on top. Sorry, there's one right on top. But I'll take the other questions offline. Yeah. Hello.
Hi, Marlon. My name's Annalisa. Thank you for sharing your story. You are so relatable. I'm interested to know, does your mother know more about it? And does she feel more empowered and inspired through your journey?
She does know it too much, actually, because my phone, it's weird because she's the one that communicates with me the most via social media. So she does have a love for technology. She knows how to use Snapchat filters and all of those kind of things. But I think the biggest moment for me, and maybe just to kind of add to that, what makes me the most proud, I don't know if she's proud of me, I hope so. And I'll just kind of quickly share this. So when my mother gave birth to me, she was a young teenage girl, and her love of her life told her at that time that she needs to get rid of this child. She needs to abort me. That was, and she was the youngest of 4 kids. Everybody else dropped out of school, and they expected her to complete school. And then she had to make this decision as a young teenage girl at school: do I keep this baby, or do I abort this child and fulfill the dream that the family expect of me? Because the love of her life told her that you either keep the baby and I go, or you get rid of this baby and I stay. Fortunately for me, my mother decided to keep the baby. I'm very happy about that. Right? And I was so excited and so happy that when I was 6.5 months in the womb, I decided to come out because I didn't want her to change her mind. Right? So I thought, no, you know, she's a young girl, she might change her mind, let me rather come out. So I was born 2.5 months premature. But out of all of that, the thing that makes me the most excited is that even though she dropped out of school during that period to give birth to me because she saw potential, when we started RLabs, she had the opportunity to go back to school and complete school. And I think that for me was always a good way to end the story. Yeah, thank you.